She crawled for 4 days through the burning Wyoming desert, both legs shattered, over 200 pounds
We
of
have to
broken
go.
body
Now!
dragging
I'm
across
scared.
rock and
Stay with
sand.
me. Run!
Okay.
Most people would have given up. Most people would
It
have
hurts
died.
so much.
I
But
know.
Eleanor
Stay
Whitmore had
with
made a
me.
promise,
Don't leave.
and she was not
Never.
a woman who
We're
breaks
getting out.
promises. 20 miles away, a widowed rancher was about to ride into hell to find her. If stories of impossible survival and love against all odds move you, hit that subscribe button and drop your location in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels across the world. Now let me tell you how it all began. Eleanor Whitmore's fingers clawed into the scorched Wyoming earth, dragging her broken body another 6 inches toward a promise she refused to break. 3 days. 3 days since the stagecoach tumbled into Devil's Gorge. 3 days of crawling through summer heat that could kill a healthy man in hours. Her lips cracked and bleeding, she whispered the same words that had kept her moving since she first opened her eyes amid the wreckage and realized she was still alive. I gave my word. I gave my word. The sun beat down without mercy, turning the desert floor into a griddle that seared through what remained of her dress. Every inch of progress cost her more than the last. Her legs, both shattered in the crash, dragged behind her like dead weight, sending fresh waves of agony through her spine with each movement. The bones ground against each other in ways that made her vision white out at the edges. But she kept moving. Her body, heavy with the extra weight she had carried her entire life, scraped against rocks and brush. The flesh of her stomach and thighs, pressed flat against the burning ground, had blistered and torn until she could no longer tell where one wound ended and another began. Blood mixed with dirt, mixed with sweat, creating a paste that crusted on her skin and cracked with every motion. In her pocket, pressed against her hip, was the letter. She did not need to read it anymore. Every word lived in her memory, branded there by repetition and hope. I will arrive on the afternoon, stage July 18th. I give you my word, Mr. Mercer. Whatever stands between us and that meeting, I will find a way through it. I am not a woman who breaks promises. July 18th had come and gone, somewhere in the fever haze of that first terrible night. Now she did not know what day it was, did not know how far she had crawled, did not know if anyone was looking for her or if the world had simply moved on, leaving her to dish in this nameless stretch of hell. What she knew was this: somewhere to the north, a man named Caleb Mercer was waiting. A man who had written her letters about partnership and family, about a daughter who needed a mother, about a life that could be built together if only she would take the chance. She had taken the chance, and now she would keep her word or she would die trying. 20 miles north at that same moment, Caleb Mercer stood at the Clearwater Depot with his boots planted on warped planks that radiated heat like a cook stove. His weathered hands hung at his sides, restless, with nothing to do but wait. In his coat pocket, the letter from Eleanor had worn soft from reading the creases so deep they threatened to tear the paper in two. Behind him, his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sat on the station bench with her small hands folded in her lap. Her dark eyes, so like her mother's, had been stayed fixed on the empty railroad tracks stretching toward the horizon. Papa. Her voice came soft, uncertain. The stage was supposed to come yesterday. I know. And the day before. I know that too, little bird. Caleb did not turn around. Could not. If he looked at his daughter's face right now, he would see hope dying by degrees, and he had seen enough of that to last a lifetime. 3 years since the cholera had swept through, taking his wife Hannah and their 2-year-old son William in the span of a single terrible week. 3 years of watching Lily grow up too fast, learning to read grief in the set of her father's shoulders, learning to expect disappointment the way other children expected presents on Christmas morning. The letters to Eleanor Whitmore had been an act of desperation that became something else. Her responses had revealed a woman who understood loss without drowning in it. A woman who had spent 12 years raising her younger sister after their parents died, who had nursed that sister through scarlet fever, who had given up her own chances at marriage and family to ensure someone else's survival. I am 34 years old, she had written, and I have never once chosen something solely for myself until now. I choose this, Mr. Mercer. I choose your daughter who needs a mother. I choose you sight unseen because your letters speak of partnership as if it were sacred. I choose the unknown over the familiar cage of obligation. And now she might be dead in the desert, her choice reduced to bones and broken promises. The station door creaked open behind him. Caleb read disaster in the footsteps before he heard the voice. Mr. Mercer. The station master, a thin man named Barnaby Cole with spectacles that never stayed straight, emerged from the telegraph office. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard, and in his trembling hands he held a yellow slip of paper that seemed to glow with bad news. Got a wire from the junction. Caleb felt Lily's small hand find his. She had risen from the bench and pressed close to his side the way she always did when storms approached. This child who had watched her mother waste away, who had seen her father dig 2 graves in one afternoon, had learned to read weather before it hit. What's it say? Barnaby glanced at Lily, then back at Caleb. Maybe the little one should go inside where it is cooler. She stays. Caleb's voice came out flat, hard. What's it say? The station master unfolded the telegram with fingers that shook badly enough to make the paper rattle. Westbound stage wrecked in the Badlands, 20 miles south near Devil's Gorge. Driver dead. 3 passengers. He paused, his voice catching. No survivors expected. The world narrowed to the edges of that telegram. Caleb heard his own voice as if from a great distance, steady despite the cracking happening somewhere inside his chest. 4 days ago, stage was supposed to arrive here on the 18th. 4 days. Barnaby nodded miserably. Crash happened on the 18th, near as they can figure. 4 days of summer heat in the Badlands would kill anyone who survived the wreck itself. That is what they are saying. They list passengers. No names, just said commercial stage regular boat. Lily tugged her father's sleeve, her young face grave, with the weight of understanding too heavy for her years. Papa, what is a wreck? Caleb knelt, bringing himself eye level with the only person he had left in this world. Her dark eyes searched his face for reassurance he could not honestly give. It means something broke, sweetheart. Something broke real, and people might need help. Is it the lady, Miss Eleanor? The question hung in the superheated air. Around them, Clearwater went about its business. A freight wagon rolling past. Someone hammering at the smithy. Mrs. Crawford emerging from the general store with her packages. Normal life continuing its relentless march while Caleb's own threatened to shatter. I do not know. He smoothed a strand of hair behind Lily's ear, trying to keep his hand from shaking. But I am going to find out. In a narrow house in Boston, 6 months before the crash, Eleanor Whitmore had sat at a piano teaching scales to a wealthy merchant's daughter. The girl, perhaps 16, kept glancing at Eleanor's reflection in the polished wood, her eyes traveling over the curves and rolls of flesh that Eleanor had carried her entire life. Miss Whitmore, the girl said finally, her voice pitched with the particular cruelty of youth masquerading as curiosity. How did you get so large? Eleanor kept her professional smile firmly in place. The same way anyone does, Miss Patterson, one day at a time. It was not the first time she had heard such questions. Would not be the last. At 34 years old and over 200 pounds on a frame barely 5 feet 4 inches tall, Eleanor Whitmore had learned to armor herself with competence, with usefulness, with the kind of indispensability that made people overlook what they could not accept. She thought about this as her fingers moved through the teaching of major muscle memory, doing the work while her mind traveled darker roads. 12 years since her parents had died of typhoid in the span of a single week, leaving 18-year-old Eleanor alone with 6-year-old Margaret clinging to her skirts. The church had wanted to put Maggie in an orphanage. Said a girl Eleanor's age could not possibly care for a child alone. Said it especially about a girl like Eleanor, too fat for anyone to want to marry, too poor to support herself. But Eleanor had lied about her age, claimed 21 instead of 18, and found work as a live-in governess, with little Maggie accompanying her as a ward. 12 years she had cooked and cleaned and taught and nursed, making herself so essential to the families who employed her that they overlooked her figure, her unmarried state, her lack of proper references. Useful. That was the word that had defined her existence. Be useful or be discarded. That was how the world worked for women like her. When Maggie had finally married and moved to Philadelphia, Eleanor had felt the ground shift beneath her feet. For the first time in her adult life, no one needed her. No one depended on her. She had spent so long being essential to others that she had no idea how to be essential to herself. That was when the advertisement had caught her eye. A widower in Wyoming seeking a wife. A rancher with a young daughter who needed a mother. A man who wrote about partnership as if it were sacred. I do not need a pretty face, Caleb Mercer had written. I need someone strong enough to survive this land, smart enough to help raise my daughter, brave enough to build something from nothing. If that is, you write back. She had written back. And in the months that followed, their letters had woven something unexpected between them. Not romance exactly, but understanding, recognition, the sense of two people who had spent their lives carrying burdens alone, finally finding someone who might be willing to share the weight. This had been her choice, her first real choice in 34 years of living for others. And then the letter had arrived, not from Caleb, but from someone whose handwriting she recognized with a cold shock of dread. The envelope bore no return address, but the red wax seal told her everything. Judge Reginald Ashford, the man who had courted her when she was 20 before her parents died, the man whose family had deemed her unworthy of their name, too fat and too poor and too common for an Ashford bride. The man who had broken their engagement and married Catherine Van Holt, instead leaving Eleanor to pick up the pieces of her shattered heart while the society pages celebrated his proper match. Catherine had died the year before, and now Reginald had decided he wanted Eleanor back, as if she were a coat he had left in a closet and only just remembered. My dearest Eleanor, the letter read, I have learned of your absurd plan to travel west as a mail-order bride. This is beneath you, beneath us both. You know we have an understanding. You know you belong with me, not with some illiterate rancher in the wilderness. I have waited patiently since Catherine's death. I have given you time to reconsider. But my patience is not infinite. Do not board that stage, Eleanor. You will regret it. Yours always, Reginald. Eleanor had crumpled the letter in her fist, her whole body shaking with a fury she had spent years learning to suppress. Yours always, as if she had ever been his, as if she had ever belonged to anyone but herself. She had boarded the stage the next morning with that crumpled letter still in her pocket, a reminder of everything she was leaving behind, everything she was choosing to escape. And now, 3 days after the crash, she was still crawling toward the life she had chosen, toward the man who had seen her words and wanted to know more, toward the little girl who needed a mother, toward freedom. 20 feet in 4 days. That was all she had managed. 20 feet through rock and brush and burning sand, with both legs dragging useless behind her and her body screaming for her to stop, to give up, to let the desert take her the way it had taken the driver and the other passengers. But Eleanor Whitmore had not survived 34 years of being overlooked and underestimated by giving up when things got hard. She had not raised her sister from childhood or nursed her through scarlet fever or built a life from nothing by surrendering to impossible odds. I gave my word. She reached forward, fingers clawing into the earth, pulled herself another inch, then another. A promise is a promise. Back in Clearwater, Caleb made his decision before Barnaby had finished folding the telegram. I am riding out there. The station master's eyes went wide. Mr. Mercer, that wire says no survivors expected. 4 days in this heat. Even if someone lived through the crash, they would be. Then I will bury them proper. Caleb's voice cut through the protest. And if by some miracle anyone is still alive, I will not leave them to die alone. Lily's small hand tightened on his. Papa, I want to come with you. Caleb looked down at his daughter, 8 years old and already too acquainted with loss. She had watched her mother waste away from cholera, had watched him dig graves that no child should ever see, had spent 3 years being raised by grief as much as by him. This ain't a trip for children, little bird. You said Miss Eleanor wrote that she would find a way through anything. Lily's chin lifted and Caleb saw Hannah's stubbornness there, pure and strong. You read me that letter 3 times, Papa. She said whatever stands between us, she will find a way. Maybe she is finding a way right now. Maybe she needs help finding it. The logic was simple in the way only a child's logic could be, and it cut through every argument Caleb might have made. All right, he heard himself say the words before he had fully decided to say them. You ride with me, but you do exactly what I say when I say it. Understood. Yes, Papa. An hour later, they rode south. 2 horses, enough water for 3 days' bandages and laudanum, and whiskey for cleaning wounds, and a shovel strapped to the pack saddle that Caleb hoped he would not have to use. The landscape shifted as they traveled, moving from the relative green near Clearwater's Creek to harder country, where Wyoming showed its true nature. Red rock and scrub sage distances that swallowed sound and hope in equal measure. The sun hammered down from a sky so blue it hurt to look at, and even the horses seemed to sense the wrongness of the journey, their ears flicking nervously at shadows that held nothing but heat. Lily rode in front of Caleb, her small body fitting against his chest, the way it had when she was a toddler, and he would take her on evening rides to help her sleep. She had been quiet since leaving town, but now she stirred. Papa, yeah, little bird. If Miss Eleanor is hurt real bad, can we fix her? The question assumes so much. That Eleanor was the passenger. That she had survived. That fixing was possible. I do not know, but if she is out there, we will not leave her alone. Mama was alone. Caleb's throat tightened. They had never talked directly about that night. He had assumed Lily was too young to remember the details. You were with her in the house. That ain't alone. But I did not know how to help. Lily's voice went small in a way that made something crack in Caleb's chest. I just sat there watching her shake and shake, her small fingers twisted in the horse's mane. If Miss Eleanor is hurt, I want to know how to help this time. The sun beat down as they rode. Caleb tried to find words adequate to the moment and came up empty. Instead, he tightened his arm around his daughter and kept moving. They reached Devil's Gorge as afternoon shadows began stretching east. The wreckage announced itself first by smell, the sweet, sick odor of death ripening in heat. Then by sight, the stagecoach, a splintered ruin 50 feet down the canyon slope, canted at an angle that spoke of violent tumbling. Caleb reined in hard, his hand covering Lily's eyes. Do not look. But she had already seen. Her body went rigid against his, and he felt her breath catch in the way of someone trying very hard not to cry. Stay with the horses. He dismounted, lifting her down. I mean it, Lily. Do not move from this spot. He approached the wreck with his bandana tied over his nose and mouth, though it did little to block the smell. The driver lay near the road, thrown clear, but broken beyond saving. The angle of his neck told the story of instant death, a small mercy in a scene that held few. Two passengers, men by their clothing, were tangled in the stage's remains. Their bodies had begun to bloat in the heat, features distorted beyond recognition. Caleb counted them twice, his heart hammering against his ribs. 3 bodies. The telegram had said 3 passengers. He circled the wrecks, scanning the ground. And there, leading away from the wreckage, he found what he was looking for. Drag marks. Not animal tracks. Too deliberate. Too purposeful. 2 parallel grooves in the dust, like someone had been pulling themselves forward, with both legs useless behind them. He followed the trail around a boulder into the shadow of an overhang, where the rock formation created a shallow cave. And there, curled in on herself like something trying to disappear into the stone, was Eleanor Whitmore. She was alive. Barely. Her dress had been reduced to rags torn by rocks and brush and 4 days of crawling. Her legs bent at angles that made Caleb's stomach drop, the bones clearly shattered in multiple places. Dried blood crusted her temple, her arms, her hands. Those hands, my God, those hands. They were raw meat, the skin torn away by days of clawing at rock and sand. Her face burned crimson from sun exposure, lips cracked and bleeding, and split in half a dozen places. The body he had expected from her letters, the body she had warned him about in her careful, honest words, was battered and scraped and bruised. But her chest rose and fell, shallow, rapid, alive. Eleanor, her eyelids fluttered. Her eyes, when they opened, were fever bright and unfocused, swimming with pain and confusion and something that might have been recognition. Late. The word came out as a croak, barely human. I am late, promised the 18th. Caleb knelt beside her, hands hovering, unsure where to touch without causing more pain. You made it farther than anyone expected. The little girl, her hand twitched, trying to rise. Lily, is she disappointed? The question cracked something in his chest. This woman dying by inches in a desert canyon, worried about disappointing a child she had never met. She is here. She rode with me to find you. Eleanor's eyes cleared for just a moment, finding his face with sudden sharp focus. You came. You gave your word you would arrive. Seemed only fair I gave mine to meet you. A sound escaped her throat. Might have been a laugh if she had the strength for it. Then her eyes rolled back and consciousness slipped away like water through fingers. Caleb worked fast. He scrambled back up the slope to find Lily exactly where he had left her. White-knuckled on the reins, her face pale beneath the dust. She is there. The hope in Lily's voice was almost harder to bear than despair would have been. Yes. Is she dead? Not yet. He grabbed the canteen, the medical supplies, the blankets. But close, I need you to be real brave now. Can you do that? Yes, Papa. They worked as the sun sank toward the western rim. Caleb cleaned Eleanor's wounds best he could, dribbling water between her cracked lips, drop by precious drop, splinting her broken legs with branches and strips torn from his own shirt. Lily held supplies past bandages, spoke in a quiet stream that seemed aimed at Eleanor's unconscious form rather than at her father. We got a real good ranch, Miss Eleanor. There is a creek with frogs that sing at night. I got a dog named Rusty. He is yellow and soft. Papa says I can teach you to ride once you are better. Mrs. Crawford makes the best apple pie in the territory. She will bring you some for sure. You do not have to be scared. We have been waiting for you a long time. Eleanor's eyes opened again as Caleb was rigging a travois from branches and rope. This time they tracked his movements with more clarity, though the fever still burned in them. Cannot move me. Each word cost her visible effort. Legs are shattered. You will kill me trying. You will die certain if I leave you here. Then that is how it ends. She drew a shuddering breath. I chose this, knew the risks. The hell it ends here. Caleb secured the last knot with more force than necessary. You crawled for 4 days to keep your word. I am not letting you quit when help is 20 miles away. Not your decision. You wrote that you chose me. He met her eyes, those fever-bright eyes that held a will stronger than her broken body. That means I get a say in whether you live or die. And I say you live, arrogant bastard. That is the spirit. Caleb allowed himself the ghost of a smile. Stay mad, Eleanor Whitmore. Anger is better fuel than hope right now. Moving her onto the travois required every ounce of gentleness Caleb possessed. Eleanor screamed once, a raw animal sound that sent Lily stumbling backward with her hands pressed over her ears, then passed out again. Good. Unconscious was better. Unconscious meant she would not feel the 20 miles of jolting and jarring that lay ahead. They started the journey back in full dark. Caleb led his horse with the travois behind Lily mounted on the second horse, with instructions to follow close and call out if she saw Eleanor stir. The night pressed close around them, thick with stars and fear. He set a pace measured in heartbeats rather than miles, slow enough to minimize jolting, fast enough to outrun despair. The horses seemed to understand the gravity of their burden, picking their way carefully over ground they could barely see. Hours blended together, periodic stops to check Eleanor's breathing, to dribble more water between her lips, to adjust the travois ropes when they threatened to come loose. Lily dozed in the saddle, trusting her horse to follow her young body, finally surrendering to exhaustion. Caleb walked in a trance of determination, his mind circling the same thoughts over and over. 20 miles. She has to last 20 miles. Keep moving. Keep breathing, both of you. Keep breathing. Dawn found them still 10 miles from Clearwater. Eleanor had not woken since they started moving. Her breathing had gone shallow and irregular, each exhale a whisper that seemed too quiet to sustain life. Her skin burned with fever under Caleb's palm. Papa. Lily's voice came scratchy with thirst and fear. Is she going to make it? He did not have an honest answer, so he gave her the only truth he could. She has fought this long. We fight longer. They pushed through the morning heat. Caleb's body moved on will alone past exhaustion into a state where each step felt separate from the last. The horses plodded with heads low foam forming at the edges of their mouths. In the travois, Eleanor lay still as death, only the faint rise and fall of her chest proving otherwise. Clearwater appeared first as a smudge on the horizon, then distinct buildings, then the real and solid town they had left a lifetime ago. People emerged from doorways as the strange procession passed. A dust-covered rancher leading a travois bearing a broken woman. A small girl slumped in her saddle like a refugee from some distant war. Whispers spread faster than hoofbeats, and by the time they reached the main street, a small crowd had gathered. Barnaby Cole ran from the depot, his spectacles askew. Dear God, you found her. Get Dr. Garrett. Caleb's voice came out as a croak. Now, the next hours existed in fragments. Dr. Thomas Garrett's house. Eleanor being lifted from the travois onto a proper bed. The scream that tore from her throat as broken legs shifted a sound that would haunt Caleb's dreams for years to come. The doctor's grim face as he examined her, his hands gentle, but his expression growing darker with each discovery. Lily fell asleep sitting upright in a chair, her small hands still reaching for her father's, even in unconsciousness. Caleb could not bring himself to move her, could not bring himself to leave the room where Eleanor fought for her life. Doctor. Garrett emerged from his examination as afternoon sun slanted through the windows. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his hands still damp from washing, and the weariness in his face told Caleb everything the words were about to confirm. Both legs broken in multiple places, 3 ribs, possible skull fracture, severe dehydration, sun exposure, infection, and half a dozen wounds. The doctor recited the litany with professional detachment. Then his voice softened. Caleb, I have seen men die from half of what she has endured. The fact that she is alive at all is, will she live? Garrett hesitated. In that hesitation, Caleb saw his own fear reflected back at him. I do not know. Next few days will tell. If the fever breaks, if infection does not set deeper, if her body has anything left to fight with, maybe. He put a hand on Caleb's shoulder. But you should prepare yourself for number. Caleb felt his hand cut through the air before he consciously decided to make the gesture. She crawled through hell to keep a promise. She does not get to die in a clean bed 2 days later. That is not how this ends. That is not up to you, Caleb. Then what is being here, whatever comes next? Garrett's grip tightened briefly on his shoulder. Go home. Clean up. Sleep. There is nothing you can do here that I cannot do better. But Caleb could not leave, could not step away from the woman who had chosen him sight unseen, who had written letters full of careful hope, who had dragged herself across desert rock with broken legs rather than break her word. He settled into the chair beside Lily, gathered his sleeping daughter into his lap, and kept vigil. Eleanor woke once as night fell. Her eyes found him in the lamplight, glassy with fever but present. Still here, not a question, a statement. Told you we do not quit on each other. Her hand moved on the coverlet, fingers extending. He took them in his own, those raw, damaged fingers that had clawed at rock for 4 days straight. Your daughter. Eleanor's whisper was barely audible. Beautiful. Brave. You raised her right. She wants to help you heal. Said she did not know how to help when her mother died, but she wants to learn now. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears that spilled down her temples, tracking clean lines through the dust still crusted on her face. Then I have to stay alive. Cannot disappoint that kind of hope. That is right, Caleb's thumb brushed across her knuckles. You made a promise to a little girl who believes in keeping them. Time to finish what you started. She held his gaze for a long moment, something passing between them that had no name but felt more real than anything Caleb had experienced in 3 years of grief. Then she nodded once, a tiny movement that cost her visible effort. Her eyes drifted shut, but her fingers tightened around his before releasing back into unconsciousness. Caleb sat in that quiet room, Lily's weight solid against his chest, Eleanor's breathing the only sound besides the ticking of Garrett's mantle clock. Outside, Clearwater settled into evening rhythms, dinner smells, closing shop doors, the distant bark of someone's dog. Normal life continuing its march. But in this room, nothing was normal. In this room, 3 people balanced on the edge between loss and possibility, between the life that was and the life that might still be. The promise that never arrived on schedule had become something else entirely. It had become a choice made and remade with every breath, every mile, every moment of refusal to let go. Eleanor had chosen to crawl through hell. Caleb had chosen to search beyond hope. Lily had chosen to ride into the desert to help a stranger. Now they would choose again. And keep choosing until the story found its ending, whatever that ending might be. Stay, Caleb whispered to Eleanor's sleeping form. Please stay. And in the darkness of that small room with his daughter warm against his chest, and a woman he barely knew fighting for her life, Caleb Mercer made a promise of his own. He would not let go. Not now, not ever. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The fever came in waves. For 3 days, Eleanor Whitmore existed somewhere between this world and the next, her consciousness, a shore she sometimes reached and sometimes missed entirely. Her body burned with an inner fire that no amount of cool cloths could quench, and in her delirium, she spoke of things she had never told anyone, secrets whispered to the shadows, confessions offered to the empty air. Dr. Thomas Garrett changed her bandages twice daily, his face growing grimmer each time he unwrapped the wounds on her legs. The infection had taken root in the shattered bones, spreading through flesh that had been ground into Wyoming dirt for 4 days. He worked with the careful precision of a man who had seen too many patients slip away fighting a battle he was not certain he could win. Caleb watched from the doorway, forbidden to enter during treatments, but unable to leave. His hands gripped the door frame until his knuckles went white, and every sound of pain from Eleanor's lips landed like a physical blow. Infection is spreading. Garrett did not soften the truth on the second morning. He stood in the hallway with his sleeves rolled up and exhaustion carved into every line of his face, the right leg especially. But what she was lying in that canyon 4 days with open fractures, desert dirt, her own blood. God knows what else got into those wounds. Garrett washed his hands in the basin, his movements slow with weariness. I can fight surface infection, cannot fight what is already in the bone. Lily stood beside her father, her small hand finding his. She had barely left the doctor's house since they arrived, sleeping in chairs, eating whatever Mrs. Crawford brought, by keeping vigil with the fierce determination of a child who understood too much about loss. What happens if you cannot fight it? Garrett crouched to her level, his professional detachment softening into something gentler. Then Miss Eleanor gets very sick, little one. Sicker than she already is. And then Garrett glanced at Caleb, who nodded. The child deserved truth. Then her body has to decide if it is strong enough to heal anyway. Lily absorbed this with a slow nod, her dark eyes grave. She is strong. She crawled for 4 days. That is real strong. Yes, it is. Garrett's eyes went suspiciously bright. Very strong indeed. That night, Eleanor's fever spiked to terrifying heights. She thrashed in the bed, crying out in delirium, fragments of sentences painting pictures of the life she had left behind. A narrow house in Boston. A sister named Margaret who had nearly died of scarlet fever. Years of teaching other people's children while her own youth slipped away. Had to let her go. Eleanor mumbled through cracked lips. Maggie got married. Did not need me anymore. Nobody needed me anymore. Caleb sat beside her with cool cloths, pressing them to her burning forehead, her wrists, her throat. Garrett had shown him the technique before going home to rest. Talk to her, the doctor had said. Sometimes they can hear us even when they cannot respond. Give her something to fight for. So Caleb talked. He told her about the ranch, about the creek that ran year-round, even in drought, about the cabin he had built with his own hands, board by board. He told her about Lily's first steps, her first words, the way she had started reading at 5 years old with a hunger that reminded him of Eleanor's letters. He told her about Hannah. She was gentle. Caleb's voice came out rough in the lamplight. Too gentle for Wyoming, maybe. The cholera took her fast. 3 days from healthy to gone. Took our boy too. William, he was only 2. Eleanor's head turned slightly toward his voice, though her eyes remained closed. Lily survived somehow. Doc Garrett said some folks just got stronger constitutions. But she watched her mama die. Watched me dig 2 graves in 1 afternoon. Caleb's voice cracked. I have not been much good to her since, too busy drowning in my own grief to see she was drowning too. Eleanor's fingers twitched under his hand. That is why I wrote those letters, not just for a wife, for someone who could give Lily what I could not, someone who knew how to keep living after losing everything. He tightened his grip on her hand. You wrote that you had spent 12 years keeping your sister alive, that you knew how to fight for people. Well, Eleanor Whitmore, it is time to fight for yourself now. Fight your way back to us. Her hand moved once, twice, squeezing his with strength that should not exist in a body this broken. That is right, Caleb leaned closer. You fight. You crawl if you have to, just like you did in that canyon. We will meet you halfway. In her fever dreams, Eleanor traveled backward through time. She was 24 again, sitting beside a narrow bed in a cramped room in Boston. Her sister Maggie lay beneath thin blankets, her 16-year-old body burning with scarlet fever, her breathing ragged and shallow. Eleanor had not slept in 3 days, had not eaten in 2. Every moment not spent teaching the children of the wealthy family who employed her was spent at Maggie's bedside fighting death with cool cloths and whispered prayers. You cannot die, Maggie. Eleanor heard herself whisper. I will not let you. Ellie. Maggie's voice came weak, barely there. You have given up everything for me. Your whole life. If I die, you will not. But if I do. Maggie's hand found hers with trembling fingers. Promise me you will finally live for yourself. Eleanor had not answered. could not answer, because she did not know how to live for herself, had never learned. From the moment her parents died when she was 18, she had existed only in relation to others. Useful, essential, indispensable. That was how she survived. That was the only way she knew. The fever dream shifted and she was standing in a parlor in Boston facing a man whose handsome face had once made her heart race. Reginald Ashford, 20 years old and already carrying himself with the certainty of someone born to privilege. "I am sorry, Eleanor." His voice was cold despite the apologetic words. "My family has made their position clear. A woman of your circumstances simply cannot become an Ashford bride. It would be—" He had paused, his eyes traveling over her body with an expression that made her want to shrink into herself. Inappropriate. She had understood what he meant, had heard the whispers at parties, the cruel jokes behind gloved hands. The Ashford boy and that fat governess. Can you imagine the poor woman actually thought she had a chance? 14 years later, his wife Catherine safely in the ground, Reginald had decided he wanted Eleanor after all. Not as a bride, she knew, as a possession. Something he had been denied that his pride demanded he claim. "Do not board that stage, Eleanor. You will regret it." But she had boarded the stage, had chosen herself for the first time in 34 years, had crawled through a desert with broken legs rather than let another man's demands dictate her life. The fever broke near dawn on the third day. Caleb felt the change before he saw it. The restless thrashing stilled. The ragged breathing eased into something deeper, more regular. He pressed his palm to Eleanor's forehead and felt the difference immediately. Still warm but no longer burning. He sagged back in his chair, relief, making his muscles liquid. She was not safe yet. Infection could still claim her. But she had cleared the first terrible hurdle. Eleanor's eyes opened as gray light crept through the window. This time they focused on him immediately. Clear. Present. "You stayed." Her voice was barely a whisper, but it was hers. "Where else would I be?" Sensible men do not sit vigil for mail-order brides they have never met. Sensible men do not agree to marry women based on letters either. Caleb allowed himself a small smile. "Reckon we are both past sensible." The corner of her mouth twitched. "How long?" 3 days since I brought you in. 7 since the crash. Lily is asleep in the next room. Been here the whole time. Drove Garrett half crazy asking questions about infection and bone setting." Caleb's smile grew. "Thinks she is planning on becoming a doctor." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears that did not fall. "My legs." Caleb hesitated. Truth or comfort? Her eyes told him she wanted the former. Both broken. Multiple fractures. Garrett says the left might heal clean if you are lucky. The right. He could not quite finish. Might not. Eleanor completed it for him. Might never walk right again. Yes, she was quiet for a long moment. "I crawled 20 feet in 4 days. Thought I was conquering distance." A harsh sound escaped her, something between a laugh and a sob. "Turns out I barely moved at all." "You moved enough. You surveyed." To what end? Her voice went flat in a way that made something cold settle in Caleb's stomach. "A crippled wife is a poor bargain, Mr. Mercer. An obese crippled wife is worse." "Caleb, what?" "If you are going to insult yourself, least do me the courtesy of using my given name." Her eyes cut to him sharp despite exhaustion. "Caleb, then. You contracted for a helpmate, not an invalid. I release you from any obligation." "The hell you do. This is not. You do not get to crawl through the desert to keep a promise, then quit the moment it gets hard." Caleb leaned forward. "That is not how this works. This is not hard. This is impossible." Eleanor's voice gained strength even as her body remained weak. "I cannot run a household. Cannot help with ranch work. Cannot. Cannot what? Cannot survive 4 days with broken legs in a canyon. Cannot drag yourself across rock when any sensible person would have laid down and died." Caleb caught her hand. "You already did impossible, Eleanor. Do not tell me you cannot do difficult." She stared at him, something fierce flickering behind the pain in her eyes. "You do not know what you are asking for." "I know exactly what I am asking for. Partnership. Someone who endures. Someone who chooses to be here even when here is hard." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "You think I care if you walk or not. You think I care about your weight. I care that you kept fighting when fighting was all you had. That is the woman I want beside me. Tears tracked down Eleanor's temples into her hair, hope warring with despair, possibility wrestling fear. I wanted to arrive on time. Her voice came out small wounded. Wanted to step off that stage looking capable. Prove I could be what you needed. You proved it in that canyon. Everything else is just details. The door creaked open. Lily stood in the doorway, her braids disheveled, her dress wrinkled from sleeping in it. She looked at Eleanor with solemn evaluation, then padded across the room on bare feet. You are awake. Lily stopped beside the bed. Papa said you might not wake up, but I knew you would. You promised to come and you came. People who keep promises do not just die. Eleanor's face transformed, softening in ways Caleb had not seen even in the depths of fever. Hello, Lily. Hello, Miss Eleanor. Does it hurt real bad? Yes, but it is getting better. Good. Lily climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed, avoiding Eleanor's splinted legs with practiced precision. I brought you something. She pulled a small object from her pocket. A stone, smooth and gray, unremarkable, except for a perfect circle of white running through its center. It is a wishing stone, Lily explained with the grave certainty of childhood. You find them by the creek sometimes. Mama said if you hold it and wish real hard, it comes true. She pressed it into Eleanor's palm. I wished for you to get better. Now you gotta wish too, so it works double. Eleanor's fingers closed around the stone, her throat working. What if I do not know what to wish for, then wish for something small first, like not hurting so much? Or for some of Mrs. Crawford's apple pie. Small wishes are easier. Who told you that? Nobody. I just figured it out. Lily settled more comfortably on the bed. After Mama died, I tried wishing for big things, for her to come back, for everything to be like before. But those wishes never worked, and it made me real sad. So now I wish for small things, like sunny days, or Papa smiling more. Small wishes come true more often. Caleb watched his daughter dispense wisdom no 8-year-old should possess, his heart cracking and mending in the same breath. All right, Eleanor said, I will wish for something small. What I will wish for a friend. Someone to talk to while I am healing. Lily's face lit up. I can be your friend. I am real good at talking. Papa says I could talk the ears off a mule. I would like that very much. Good. Then that wish is already true. Lily nodded with satisfaction. See, small wishes work better. The days that followed established a rhythm. Mornings, Caleb returned to the ranch to handle work that could not wait. Lily stayed with Eleanor, reading aloud from books Mrs. Crawford brought, helping with small tasks that made the invalid feel less helpless. Afternoons, Caleb came back to town. He sat with Eleanor while Lily napped, their conversations building bridges between the people they had been in letters and the people they were becoming in person. You wrote that you raised your sister alone, Caleb said one afternoon. What happened to your folks' typhoid? I was 18, Maggie was 6. Eleanor's hand stilled on the coverlet. The church wanted to put her in an orphanage. Said a girl my age could not possibly care for a child alone. But you did anyway. I lied about my age. Told them I was 21. Got work as a governess. Brought Maggie with me as my ward. Eleanor smiled grimly. Spent 12 years making myself indispensable to families who would otherwise have thrown us out. Learned to cook, clean, sew, teach, nurse. Whatever they needed. Whatever kept us together. What happened when Maggie grew up? She married a merchant from Philadelphia. Good man, loves her properly. Eleanor's voice went flat. She does not need me anymore. Nobody did. So I answered your advertisement. That why you came, because you needed to be needed, partly. Eleanor met his eyes, but also because your letters. You wrote about Lily like she was the center of your world, about how you would do anything to give her a good life. And I thought what I thought here is a man who understands what I understand. That love is not just feeling. It is choosing every day no matter how hard it gets. Caleb absorbed this in silence. He had spent 3 years believing no one could understand the weight of what he had lost. But this woman with her broken legs and fierce determination understood it bone deep. I was not a good husband to Hannah, he said finally. Loved her, but maybe not the way she needed. She was gentle, and I was always working, always focused on the next thing that needed doing instead of the person right in front of me. You regret it every damn day. Then do not make the same mistake twice. Eleanor's hand found his. I do not need gentle Caleb. I need honest. I need someone who will tell me when I am being stubborn for the wrong reasons. Someone who will fight with me instead of around me. That I can do. Good. Then we might just survive this after all. By the end of the first week, Eleanor could sit propped up without dizziness. By the second she was staying awake for hours at a stretch, her body slowly reclaiming ground the fever had stolen. But the right leg remained a problem. Infection beaten back for now, Garrett said on day 10. But the bone is not setting the way I would like. Even after it heals, she is looking at permanent damage. A limp at minimum, possibly worse. She will walk through maybe, with assistance. Maybe not at all on that leg, Garrett's voice softened. You should prepare her, Caleb, and yourself. That night after Lily had fallen asleep, Caleb sat beside Eleanor in the lamplight. Garrett told you. It was not a question. Yeah, and she held his gaze. Are you reconsidering a wife who might not walk is not much use on a ranch? You keep saying that. Use value, like you are a tool instead of a person. Caleb's voice sharpened. What happened to you, Eleanor? Who taught you that is all you were worth? She flinched like he had struck her. Everyone. My whole life. Be useful or be discarded. That is how the world works. Not my world. Caleb's hand caught her chin, turning her face toward his. In my world, a person's worth is measured by their word, by how they treat folks who can not do nothing for them, by whether they quit when quitting would be easier. His eyes held hers. You crawled through the desert on broken legs because you gave your word. That is worth more to me than 1,000 able-bodied wives who would have laid down and died. Eleanor's eyes glistened. You mean that I am not in the habit of saying things I do not mean. I am scared. The admission came out small. I have never been scared before. Never had the luxury for it. But lying here not knowing if I will ever walk again, not knowing if I can be what you need, then be scared. Be terrified. But do not you dare give up. Caleb's hand moved to cup her face. We did not come this far to quit now. You did not crawl through hell to stop fighting in a clean bed. How do you do that? Do what? Make impossible things sound possible. Make me believe I can actually. He kissed her. It was not planned, was not calculated. One moment they were talking, the next his lips were on hers, soft and questioning. She tasted like fear and hope, and the medicine Garrett had been giving her. She kissed him back. When they broke apart, Eleanor's eyes were wide. That was not. We have not even. No, we have not. Caleb's thumb traced her cheekbone. Should I apologize? No. Her hand came up to cover his. But maybe practice more. He laughed a sound that surprised him with its genuineness and obliged. The door banged open. Papa! Miss Eleanor, there is a man outside asking questions. Lily burst into the room, Rusty at her heels, both of them breathing hard from running. Caleb was on his feet instantly. What kind of questions? About Miss Eleanor? About where she came from and why she is here, and whether she is really hurt or just pretending? Eleanor had gone pale. What did he look like? Fancy clothes, shiny boots? Talked like he had a stick up his. Lily's face scrunched with dislike, like he thought he was better than everybody. I did not like him, Papa. Neither did Rusty. Eleanor's hand gripped Caleb's arm with surprising strength. Reginald. Oh God, it is Reginald. Who Judge Reginald Ashford from Boston? Eleanor's voice had gone thin with something that sounded like fear. We were engaged before. The world tilted slightly. Engaged. It was years ago. He courted me when I was 20, before my parents died. His family did not approve of the match. I was not wealthy enough, connected enough. She was speaking fast now, the words tumbling out. And I was too fat, of course. Not the right image for an Ashford wife. He broke it off, found someone more suitable, and now his wife died last year. And he decided he wanted me again. Said we could finally be together now that there were no obstacles. Eleanor's grip on his arm tightened. That is part of why I answered your advertisement, Caleb. To get away from him. To go somewhere he could not follow, but he followed anyway. He has money, influence, the kind of man who does not hear the word no. Eleanor's eyes met his and he saw real terror there. If he is here, if he has found me, he will not stop. He never stops. Caleb turned to Lily. Where is he now? Talking to Mr. Crawford at the store, asking if anyone knows where the mail-order bride is staying. Crawford will not tell him nothing. He was offering money, Papa. A lot of it. Caleb's jaw tightened. Money could loosen a lot of tongues in a town like Clearwater. Stay here with Eleanor, he told Lily. Do not let anyone in except me or Dr. Garrett. Understand? Yes, Papa. Eleanor, he turned back to her. Whatever this man wants, he is not getting it. You hear me? You made your choice. You chose this. You chose us. And I am not in the habit of letting anyone take what is mine. I am not yours, Caleb. We are not even married yet. No, but you will be. He kissed her forehead hard and quick. Soon as you can stand for the ceremony, you will be Eleanor Mercer. And then let us see this fancy judge try to claim what belongs to someone else. Caleb. He turned at the door. Eleanor's face had shifted, the fear still there, but joined now by something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Be careful. Reginald is dangerous. Not with fists, with words, with influence, with the law. I can handle words. Can you handle a man who believes he is entitled to whatever he wants? Who has never been told no in his entire privileged life? Caleb's hand rested on the doorframe. Reckon he is about to learn. He found Judge Reginald Ashford at the general store, a well-dressed man, surrounded by several townspeople, who had been drawn by the spectacle of Eastern money and refined speech. I understand there was a stagecoach accident. The man was saying, his voice pitched to Carrie. A woman from Boston, traveling alone. I am her fiancé, you see, and I have been desperately worried. That's so. Caleb stepped into the circle, his presence scattering the curious onlookers. Ashford turned slowly, assessing Caleb with eyes that had clearly expected something different, something less substantial, something easier to dismiss. You must be the rancher. Ashford's smile did not reach his eyes. The one who has been taking advantage of a vulnerable woman's compromised state. That what I am doing, Eleanor is confused, injured, making decisions she will regret once she is properly recovered. Ashford stepped forward, his voice pitched to Carrie. I have known her since she was a girl. We have an understanding. Whatever fantasies she has entertained about starting over out here, they end now. Seems to me Eleanor has made her understanding pretty clear. Caleb did not move, did not raise his voice. She came here to marry me. Still intends to soon as she is healed enough. She can not marry you. She has already promised to me. That is not what she says. Then she is lying. Ashford's mask slipped, something ugly flashing beneath. Or you have coerced her somehow. Either way, I am taking her back to Boston where she belongs. The store had gone silent, every eye fixed on the two men facing each other across the rough plank floor. Caleb let the silence stretch. When he spoke, his voice carried the quiet certainty of a man who had learned long ago that actions mattered more than words. Let me explain something to you, Judge. Eleanor Whitmore crawled for 4 days through that desert with 2 broken legs because she gave her word she would be here. 4 days in summer heat that would have killed most men. She did not quit, did not give up, did not break her promise even when breaking it would have been the easiest thing in the world. He took one step closer to Ashford. That woman chose this life, chose me, chose my daughter. And if you think some fancy clothes and Eastern money give you the right to take that choice away from her, you are about to learn different. Ashford's face mottled red. How dare you? I am not finished. Caleb's voice went soft. Dangerous. You got 2 options, Judge. You can accept that Eleanor made her decision and leave peaceable. Or you can keep pushing and find out exactly how we handle men who cannot take no for an answer out here in Wyoming. Is that a threat? It is a fact. Caleb turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Judge, stay away from Dr. Garrett's house. You come near Eleanor again without her permission, and this conversation is going to feel real friendly by comparison. He walked out without looking back. Behind him, he heard Ashford's voice pitched higher now, with frustration and wounded pride. This is not over, rancher. This is not over by a long shot. Caleb kept walking. It was not over. He knew that. Men like Ashford did not accept defeat gracefully. They schemed, they maneuvered, they used money and influence to get what raw strength could not provide. But Eleanor had made her choice. She had crawled through hell to make it, and Caleb would be damned if he let anyone take that away from her. When he got back to Garrett's house, Eleanor was sitting up in bed, Lily beside her, both of them tense with waiting. Well, Eleanor asked. He is not happy. Number, he would not be. Eleanor's hands twisted in the bedsheet. What now? Caleb crossed to the bed, sat on the edge, took both her hands in his. Now we get you healed, get you to the ranch, get you married legal and proper and witnessed. He squeezed her fingers. And then let Judge Reginald Ashford try to take you from your own home, your own family. It will not be that simple. Nothing worth having ever is. Caleb glanced at Lily, who was watching them with fierce attention. But we got something he does not. What is that? Lily answered before Caleb could. Each other. Eleanor's eyes filled. She pulled one hand free to touch Lily's face, then Caleb's. Each other. She repeated softly. Yes, I suppose we do. Outside, the summer evening settled into dusk. Somewhere in town, a man with money and power was plotting his next move. But in this small room, three people held tight to the choice they had made. Whatever came next, they would face it together. That was the only certainty any of them needed. Judge Ashford did not leave Clearwater. He took a room at the boarding house, made himself comfortable, and started spending money in ways that made people notice. Bought drinks at the saloon, donated to the church building fund, chatted with merchants about the challenges of running businesses in such a remote territory. He is buying the town, Eleanor said on the third day of his presence, her voice tight with anger. That is what he does, buys people until they owe him. Folks around here are not for sale. Everyone is for sale, Caleb. The price just varies. She was not wrong. By the end of the first week, Caleb noticed changes. Crawford avoided his eyes at the general store. Mrs. Patterson, who usually gossiped freely, went quiet when he approached. Even Garrett seemed uncomfortable, though he still came daily to check Eleanor's progress. What is he telling people? Caleb asked during one of Garrett's visits. Garrett hesitated. That Eleanor is confused, that the accident damaged her mind, that she does not know what she is agreeing to. And people believe that, some do. Ashford is convincing, educated, speaks well. Garrett sighed. And he has got papers, Caleb, legal documents. Says Eleanor signed a marriage contract before she left Boston. Eleanor's sharp intake of breath drew both men's attention. That is a lie. Her voice shook with fury. I never signed anything. He has forged it. Can you prove that? Garrett asked gently. Eleanor stopped. No, I cannot prove what does not exist. But he can produce what does. Caleb's jaw tightened. Even if it is fake. Exactly. Eleanor pushed herself higher against her pillows, wincing at the movement. That is how Reginald operates. He does not lie outright. He creates truth, manufactures evidence. By the time you realize what he has done, it is too late to fight it. This is not Boston, Caleb said. We do things different here, do you? When he has got money and papers and a respectable appearance, and all you have got is the word of a crippled woman nobody knows. Eleanor's voice wavered. Caleb, I have seen him destroy people. Businessmen who refuse to sell to him. Women who turn down his proposals. He ruins them quietly, methodically, until they have nothing left. Then we do not give him time to be methodical. What do you mean? Caleb turned to the doctor. She well enough to travel, physically barely. The Jocelyn could. She stays here. Ashford has access. Has witnesses who will swear she said whatever he needs her to say. Has time to build his case. Caleb's mind raced. But if she is at the ranch, she is on my land, my property. He cannot touch her without going through me first. Moving her now is risky, Garrett warned. Leaving her here is riskier. Caleb looked at Eleanor. Your choice. You want to stay where it is safe for your body, but dangerous for your future. Or you want to take a chance on healing at the ranch where I can protect you. Eleanor did not hesitate. The ranch, get me out of here before he finds some new way to trap me. They moved her that same afternoon. Caleb borrowed Crawford's freight wagon, lined it with every blanket and quilt available, and drove to Garrett's house under cover of the siesta hour when most of the town was resting through the worst of the summer heat. The transfer from bed to wagon was brutal. Eleanor bit through her lip to keep from screaming, blood mixing with sweat on her chin. Lily held her hand through the worst of it, her small face pale but determined. Almost there, Miss Eleanor. Almost there. I know, sweetheart, I know. The journey to the ranch took 4 hours. 4 hours of careful navigation around every rut and rock. 4 hours of Eleanor drifting in and out of consciousness as pain and exhaustion fought for dominance. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun was setting, and Eleanor was barely responsive. Caleb carried her inside, laid her on the bed that had been Hannah's, and stood over her with his heart pounding against his ribs. "Papa." Lily's voice came from the doorway, small and scared. "Will she get better? She is going to be fine." Caleb said it like he believed it, because Lily needed him to believe it, even when fear clawed at his chest. "She just needs rest. Real rest in a real home where nobody is going to bother her." Eleanor's eyes fluttered open. "Caleb, I am here. We made it. We made it." Her hand found his, gripping weakly. "Do not let him take me. Promise me. Whatever happens, do not let him." "I promise." Caleb pressed his lips to her knuckles. "You are home now, Eleanor. This is where you stay." She slept for 18 hours straight. When she woke, the first thing she saw was Lily sitting in a chair beside the bed reading aloud from a book of fairy tales. The second thing she saw was Caleb in the doorway, a cup of coffee in his hands, watching both of them with an expression that made her heart clench. And the princess said she would rather live in a cottage with someone who loved her than a palace with someone who only wanted to own her. Lily looked up. "Oh, you are awake. How are you feeling, Mama?" The words still sent warmth flooding through Eleanor's chest. "I am fine, sweetheart. Just impatient. Papa says impatience is the enemy of good sense." Lily handed over a cup of water with solemn care. "He says it when I want to ride faster than my horse can go safe. Your papa is a wise man. Sometimes." Lily grinned. "Other times he is stubborn as a mule." "Wonder where you learned that," Caleb muttered. But he was smiling. "I got a letter today," Caleb said one night after Lily was asleep. "From Garrett." Eleanor looked up from her mending. "What about Ashford filed papers in Cheyenne, claiming you are mentally incompetent, that the accident damaged your brain and you cannot make legal decisions for yourself?" Eleanor's hands stopped moving. The blood drained from her face. "He is trying to have me declared insane." "Trying. Has not succeeded yet. But if he does, he can petition to be your guardian. Can take you back to Boston. Marry you, do whatever he wants. Oh God." Eleanor's hand found her mouth. "Oh God. Caleb, if he gets a judge to agree. Then we get married first." Caleb said it calmly like he was discussing crop rotation. "Tomorrow, tonight, if we can get Reverend Holden out here. Married woman has got different legal standing than a spinster. Husband has got rights, a stranger does not." Eleanor stared at him. "You would do that? Marry me now like this, just to block him legally? I would marry you now like this because I want to." Caleb's hand found hers. "Legal protection is just a bonus. You think I have been waiting because I was not sure. I have been waiting because I wanted you strong enough to stand for the ceremony. But if standing is going to cost us everything, we do it sitting down." "Caleb," her voice caught. "I love you." The words came out rough, unpracticed. Did not plan to, was not looking for it. But somewhere between finding you in that canyon and watching you fight your way back to life, I fell in love with you. The stubborn, scared, fierce, impossible woman who refused to break her promise, even when breaking it would have been easier. Eleanor's eyes overflowed. "I love you too. I have been afraid to say it, afraid it would jinx everything." "Then we are both fools." Caleb leaned in, kissed her gently. "Marry me, Eleanor Whitmore. Not because you are running from something, but because you are running toward something. Toward me, toward Lily, toward the life we are going to build together." "Yes." Eleanor laughed through her tears. "Yes, I will marry you. Tonight, tomorrow, whenever you can arrange it. Then I better go find the Reverend." He rode to town in the gathering dusk, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Whatever came next, they would face it together. That was what mattered. Nothing else mattered. Reverend Isaac Holden listened to Caleb's request with raised eyebrows, but no judgment. The lamplight in his small study cast long shadows across shelves lined with worn hymnals and dog-eared Bibles, the accumulated tools of a life spent shepherding souls through Wyoming's unforgiving terrain. "You are certain about this? Caleb, marriage is a lifetime commitment." "I am certain. And Miss Whitmore, she is in her right mind despite what Judge Ashford claims, sharp as a tack. Sharper than me most days." Caleb's mouth quirked into something that was almost a smile. "She is also stubborn as a mule and twice as ornery." Reckon that is why I love her. Holden studied him for a long moment, seeing past the dust and exhaustion to something that had not been there 3 years ago when he had stood beside this same man at two gravesides in a single afternoon. Hope, fragile and hard-won, but unmistakably present. Then I will be at your ranch first thing tomorrow morning. Best to do this proper with witnesses. Witnesses might be a problem. Ashford has got half the town spooked. Then we will find the half that is not. Holden's voice firmed with the quiet authority of a man who had faced down blizzards and bandits in the slow grinding despair of frontier life. I have known you your whole life, Caleb Mercer. Baptized you, married you to Hannah, buried her and your boy. I know the kind of man you are. And I have seen enough of Judge Ashford to know the kind of man he is. Character matters more than money in God's eyes. Caleb clasped the Reverend's hand, feeling the calluses of a man who split his own wood and tended his own garden between sermons. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Thank me after I have said the words that make her yours. Caleb rode home under a sky thick with stars, hope rising in his chest for the first time in longer than he could remember. The night air carried the scent of sage and coming autumn, and somewhere in the darkness, a coyote called to its pack with the lonesome wail that had once seemed like the sound of grief itself. Tonight it sounded different. Tonight it sounded like possibility. He found Eleanor awake when he returned, sitting up against the pillows with a lamp burning low beside her. Lily slept curled at the foot of the bed, one small hand resting on Eleanor's ankle as if to anchor her in place. Tomorrow morning, Caleb said quietly, crossing to the bed without disturbing his daughter. Holden is coming out with witnesses. Who Garrett for certain? Maybe the Crawfords if they have got the courage. Eleanor's hand found his in the dim light. Might be a small wedding. I do not need big. Her fingers tightened around his. I just need you. They sat together in the darkness, listening to Lily's soft breathing, to the night sounds of the ranch around them. The creak of the barn settling, the distant lowing of cattle, the wind whispering through grass that would soon turn golden with fall. Tell me about Hannah, Eleanor said eventually. I want to know her, not as competition, as the woman who came before me. You sure I am going to sleep in her bed, raise her daughter, live in the house she built with you? I should know who she was, so Caleb told her. He told her about meeting Hannah at a church social when they were both 16, about courting her for 2 years before her father agreed to the match, about building this cabin together board by board, their dreams taking shape with every nail he drove. She was gentle, his voice roughened with memory. Too gentle for this place, maybe. The isolation got to her. The winters, the constant work with never enough hands. He paused, gathering words for wounds that had never fully healed. She used to sing while she worked. Old hymns mostly. Sometimes I still hear them. Think I am going crazy for a second before I remember. That is not crazy, Eleanor said softly. That is love, is it? Sometimes I wonder if I loved her right, loved her enough. She was lonely out here, and I was always working, always focused on the next thing that needed doing instead of the person right in front of me. Stop, Eleanor's voice cut through his guilt like a blade through fog. You cannot retroactively fix the past, Caleb. All you can do is learn from it. What do you think I should learn? That presence matters more than provision. That being here, really here, is worth more than all the fences you can fix or cattle you can raise. Eleanor squeezed his hand. I spent 12 years being useful, being indispensable, but I was not present for my own life. I was always performing for someone else's approval, always trying to earn my place. And now I want to be present, here with you, not useful, not indispensable, just here. Caleb turned her hand over, pressed a kiss to her palm. That is what I want too, for both of us to just be here, together, together. She smiled in the darkness. I like the sound of that. Morning came too fast and not fast enough. Eleanor woke to Lily's excited voice bouncing off the cabin walls like sunlight off water. It is your wedding day. Wake up. Wake up. It is your wedding day. Caleb had already been up for hours doing chores that could not wait, cleaning himself up as best he could. He wore his only good shirt, the one Hannah had made him before she died. The stitching was still perfect after 3 years, each seam a testament to the careful hands that had sewn it. Is this strange? He asked Eleanor when he came to help her dress. Wearing a dead woman's gift to marry another, Eleanor touched the careful stitching on his collar, tracing the tiny even stitches that spoke of patience and love. Number. It is honoring what was while embracing what is. Garrett arrived first, his medical bag in hand, his face grave with the weight of what this day might bring. Thought I had better check my patient before she becomes a bride. I am fine. Let me be the judge of that. He examined her legs, took her pulse, looked into her eyes with the careful attention of a man who had watched too many patients slip away. You are not fine, but you are improving. Try not to stand for too long during the ceremony. I will stand for as long as it takes. Reverend Holden came next, his Bible under his arm, his face grave with the weight of the occasion. Behind him came Mrs. Crawford, defiant despite her husband's absence. James was too scared to come. She said bluntly, setting down a basket that smelled of fresh baked bread, afraid of what Ashford might do. But I told him Eleanor Whitmore crawled through a desert to get here. And if she can do that, I can certainly walk across a valley to watch her marry. Thank you. Eleanor's voice was thick with emotion. You do not know what this means. I know exactly what it means. Mrs. Crawford squeezed her hand with the firm grip of a woman who had buried 3 children and a husband and still managed to smile at sunrise. Now let us get you married before that snake Ashford finds a way to stop it. The ceremony was brief, simple, perfect. Eleanor sat in a chair by the window, sunshine streaming across her face like a benediction. Her dress was borrowed from Mrs. Crawford, hastily altered to fit her larger frame, but she had never felt more beautiful. Caleb stood beside her, his hand in hers, his weathered face soft with an emotion he had not allowed himself to feel in 3 long years. Lily pressed close, serving as both flower girl and ring bearer, her small face serious with the gravity of the moment. In her pocket, the wishing stone pressed against her hip like a talisman. Dearly beloved. Reverend Holden began, his voice carrying the weight of countless ceremonies performed in parlors and churchyards, at bedsides and gravesides, in journey and in grief. We are gathered here in the sight of God and these witnesses to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. The words washed over Eleanor, ancient and familiar, and new all at once. She had imagined this moment so many times in the lonely years of her youth. Always in a grand church with stained glass windows. Always in a white dress that cost more than she earned in a year. Always with a man who had been chosen for her rather than by her. This was nothing like those imaginings. This was better. Do you, Caleb Mercer, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until death do you part? I do. His voice was steady, certain, the voice of a man who had learned the hard way what those words truly meant. Do you, Eleanor Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until death do you part? I do. Her voice did not waver, did not hesitate. For the first time in 34 years, she was choosing her own life, and she had never been more certain of anything. Then, by the power vested in me by God in the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you husband and wife. Holden smiled, and for a moment the grave reverend looked almost mischievous. You may kiss your bride. Caleb knelt beside her chair and kissed her gently, thoroughly, as if they had all the time in the world. As if there were no judge from Boston plotting against them. As if the future stretched out before them like the Wyoming sky, endless and full of possibility. Mrs. Mercer, he said when they broke apart. Mr. Mercer, she replied and smiled. Lily launched herself at both of them, her small arms wrapping around as much of them as she could reach. You are my mama now. Really, truly my mama. Really, truly. Eleanor agreed, pulling the girl close, feeling the warmth of this child who had chosen her as surely as she had chosen them. For the rest of our lives. The celebration was small, coffee and cake that Mrs. Crawford had brought, laughter and congratulations from the handful of witnesses who had dared to stand against Ashford's money and influence. A brief moment of joy amid the larger storm. It ended with the sound of hoofbeats. Judge Reginald Ashford rode up the valley road with 2 men beside him. Men who wore badges that glinted in the morning sun. Men whose faces held the careful blankness of officials performing an unpleasant duty. Marshals, Garrett said, his face going pale. Territorial marshals. Caleb moved to the doorway, putting himself between the approaching men and his new bride. His hand dropped automatically to his hip before he remembered he had not worn his gun to his own wedding. Stay inside, Eleanor. Ashford dismounted with his usual practiced grace, brushing trail dust from his expensive coat, with the casual gesture of a man accustomed to others doing such things for him. The marshals flanked him, their hands resting on their holsters, in a way that was not quite threatening, but not quite peaceful either. Samuel Mercer. Ashford's voice dripped with false regret. I hoped it would not come to this. Then turn around and ride out. I am afraid I cannot do that. Ashford produced a document from his coat, unfolding it with theatrical slowness. I have here a court order declaring Eleanor Whitmore mentally incompetent and naming me as her legal guardian. These marshals are here to enforce it. Eleanor Mercer. Caleb's voice did not waver. She is Eleanor Mercer now. We were married an hour ago. Ashford's expression flickered. Surprise, then fury, then cold calculation, each emotion passing across his handsome face like clouds across the sun. An invalid marriage. She lacks the mental capacity to consent. She seemed plenty capable when she said I do. A ceremony performed after competency was challenged is automatically suspect. Ashford stepped forward, his confidence returning. The marshals have orders to take her into custody until the matter can be settled in court. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. The air went thick with tension. Caleb felt the weight of the rifle he was not carrying, the knife he had left inside. He had been so focused on the ceremony, on the joy of finally claiming Eleanor as his own, that he had forgotten to arm himself. Gentlemen. Reverend Holden stepped onto the porch, his Bible still in hand, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man who answered to a higher power than any territorial court. I have just performed a legally binding marriage. Miss Whitmore, Mrs. Mercer, spoke her vows clearly and coherently. I am prepared to testify to that in any court. As am I, Garrett added, moving to stand beside him. Eleanor Mercer is my patient. Her mind is completely intact. Judge Ashford's claims are baseless. You are both biased parties. Ashford dismissed them with a wave of his hand. Friends of the accused kidnapper. And you are a jilted suitor who cannot accept rejection. Mrs. Crawford joined the line on the porch, her chin lifted with the defiance of a woman who had nothing left to lose. Everyone in Clearwater knows it. You have been throwing money around trying to buy friends, but you cannot buy respect, cannot buy loyalty. One of the marshals shifted uncomfortably. His hand dropped from his holster, and something in his expression suggested he was beginning to question the rightness of his errand. Judge Ashford, maybe we should wait for the territorial judge to rule before. The order is valid. Ashford's composure cracked something ugly, flashing beneath the polished surface. She is mentally incompetent. She belongs to me. I belong to no one. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, leaning heavily on the frame, but standing on her own feet through sheer force of will. The sight of her seemed to freeze everyone in place. This woman who should have been bedridden. This woman whose legs had been shattered beyond repair. This woman who had crawled through a desert to keep a promise and was now standing in defiance of a man who had never been denied anything in his privileged life. I am Eleanor Mercer. Her voice rang out clear and strong across the morning air. Wife of Caleb Mercer, stepmother to Lily Mercer, I am in full possession of my faculties. I remember every moment of crawling through that desert. I remember every word of every letter Caleb and I exchanged. I remember choosing this life, this man, this family. Her voice strengthened with every word drawing power from somewhere deep within her battered body. And I remember you, Reginald. I remember every threat you made, every promise you broke, every attempt to make me feel like property instead of a person. Eleanor, you do not know what you are saying. I know exactly what I am saying. She stepped forward out of the doorway onto the porch. Her right leg nearly buckled, but Caleb was there, his arm around her waist holding her upright. She leaned into his strength, drawing on it without shame. I am saying no. I said it in Boston and you did not listen. I said it through months of your letters demanding I reconsider. I said it when I boarded a stage bound for Wyoming. I am saying it now for the last time. She took another step forward and then another, her body heavy and awkward and beautiful in its defiance. No, Reginald. I do not love you. I never loved you. And no court order, no marshals, no amount of money will change that. Go home. Find someone who actually wants you. Because I never will. Silence fell. The marshals exchanged glances. One of them cleared his throat, looking from Eleanor to Ashford and back again with an expression that had shifted from dutiful to doubtful. Ma'am, you seem pretty clear-headed to me. She is deceiving you. Cannot you see what I see? The marshal's voice went hard. Is a man who will not take no for an answer. And in my experience, that kind of man is usually the problem, not the solution. He remounted his horse, his partner following suit. I would recommend heading back to Boston, Judge. Wyoming does not take kindly to men who harass women, especially married women with husbands who look ready to put you in the ground. Ashford's face went purple with rage. He looked from Caleb to Eleanor to the witnesses on the porch, seeing his careful plans crumble like dust in the wind. This is not over. He spat. This is not over by a long shot. Yes, it is. Eleanor's voice was steady. Goodbye, Reginald. She turned her back on him, literally turned away, dismissing him, rendering him invisible. Caleb helped her back inside. The door closed behind them. Outside, they heard Ashford's voice raised in impotent fury. The marshal's calm refusals. The sounds of horses eventually moving away. Only when the hoofbeats faded completely did Eleanor allow herself to collapse against Caleb's chest. Is it over? She whispered. Is it really over? It is over. Caleb held her tight. He is gone, Eleanor. You are safe. I am home. Her voice cracked. I am finally home. Lily squirmed between them, hugging them both with the fierce strength of a child who had learned too young how fragile happiness could be. That was amazing, Mama. You were so brave. And Papa looked so scary. And Mrs. Crawford called Judge Ashford a snake. Eleanor laughed through her tears. She did she not? The best part is now you are really married and nobody can change that ever. Lily beamed with the simple certainty of childhood. We are a family, a real true forever family. Caleb looked at his daughter, at his wife, at the small cabin that had seen so much grief and was finally seeing joy again. Yeah, little bird, he said softly. We are. Outside, the summer sun blazed over the Wyoming Valley. The creek ran silver through green pastures. The world continued its relentless turning. But in this house, 3 people held tight to what they had built from wreckage and will. A family forged in fire. A love proven by choice. A promise kept against all odds. And it was only the beginning. The first morning of married life began with Eleanor falling out of bed. She tried to get up alone, unwilling to wake Caleb, and her right leg buckled the moment weight hit it. She crashed to the floor with a thud that brought Caleb bolt upright and Lily running from the next room. Eleanor. Caleb was beside her in seconds. What happened? Are you hurt? Just my pride. Eleanor's face burned with humiliation. I thought I could. I wanted to. You wanted to prove you could do it yourself. Caleb's voice softened as he lifted her back onto the bed. I know. But healing does not work on your timetable, darling. It works on its own. I hate this. The words came out fiercer than she intended. I hate being helpless. Hate needing to be carried and lifted, and you are not helpless. Caleb sat beside her, his hand finding hers. You are healing. There is a difference. Is there helpless is giving up? Helpless is laying in that canyon waiting to die. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You did not do that. You crawled. And now you are going to learn to walk again one step at a time. But you have got to let us help you get there. Lily appeared in the doorway with a cup of water. I heard the crash. Are you okay, Mama? Eleanor's heart swelled at the word. She would never tire of hearing it. I am fine, sweetheart. Just impatient. Papa says impatience is the enemy of good sense. Lily handed over the water with solemn care. He says it when I want to ride faster than my horse can go safe. Your papa is a wise man. Sometimes. Lily grinned. Other times he is stubborn as a mule. Wonder where you learned that, Caleb muttered. But he was smiling. The days found their rhythm. Mornings, Caleb works the ranch while Eleanor and Lily managed the household. Eleanor could not do much physically, but she could direct. Organizing the pantry, planning meals, teaching Lily lessons at the kitchen table. You are better at arithmetic than my old teacher. Lily said one morning, working through sums Eleanor had written out. She just made us memorize. You explain why. Understanding the why helps you remember the how. Is that what you told the children you taught in Boston? Some of them? Eleanor's mouth twisted. The ones whose parents wanted them educated, not just occupied. What is the difference? Educated means learning to think. Occupied means learning to sit still. Eleanor tapped Lily's paper. Which do you want to be educated? Definitely. Lily bent back to her work with renewed focus. Afternoons belonged to walking practice. Garrett had fashioned a crude crutch from a branch padded at the top with wrapped cloth. Eleanor used it to take halting steps around the cabin, Caleb hovering nearby in case she fell. Stop watching me like I am going to break. She snapped on the third day. You might. Then I will pick up the pieces and try again. That is what I have been doing my whole life, I know. That is what scares me. She stopped, turning awkwardly to face him. What does that mean? Means you are so used to pushing through pain alone you do not know how to let someone help. Caleb crossed his arms. You think accepting help is weakness, but it is not, Eleanor. It is trust. I trust you. Do you? Because every time I reach out to steady you, you flinch away. Every time I offer to carry something, you insist on doing it yourself. That is not trust. That is habit. Eleanor opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. He was right. Damn him, he was right. I do not know how to be any different. She admitted, I have been taking care of myself since I was 18. Taking care of Maggie before that. Nobody ever. Her voice cracked. Nobody ever took care of me. Caleb closed the distance between them, his hands finding her shoulders. I want to. If you will let me. What if I do not know how? Then we learn together. He kissed her forehead. Same as everything else. That night, lying in the darkness with Caleb's warmth beside her, Eleanor allowed herself to cry. Not from pain, though there was plenty of that. Not from fear, though Ashford's shadow still lingered at the edges of her mind. From release. From the overwhelming strangeness of being held when she had spent so long holding herself together alone. Hey, Caleb's voice came soft through the darkness. What is wrong? Nothing. Eleanor wiped her eyes. Everything. I do not know. That is real specific. A laugh bubbled up through the tears. I am not used to this. Crying, being happy, Eleanor rolled to face him, though she could not see his features in the dark. I kept waiting for something to go wrong. For you to change your mind. For the Marshalls to come back. For this whole life to dissolve like a dream. It is not a dream. I know. That is what is making me cry. She reached out, found his face, traced the stubbled line of his jaw. Caleb, I spent 34 years surviving. Just surviving. Not living, not hoping, not dreaming. Just getting through each day to the next one. And now I have something to lose. And that is terrifying. Caleb pulled her closer, tucking her head under his chin. I know, lost Hannah, lost William. Thought I would never let myself care that much again, because losing hurt too bad. His arms tightened. But then you showed up, crawling through a desert to keep a promise. And I realized not caring does not protect you from pain. It just means you suffer alone. So we suffer together. We do everything together. That is what marriage means. Eleanor pressed her face against his chest, breathing in the scent of him. Sweat and sage and something uniquely Caleb. I love you. I love you too. His hand stroked her hair. Now sleep, Mrs. Mercer. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Why? Because tomorrow you are going to walk to the porch and I am going to watch you do it without helping, even though it will kill me, because you need to know you can. Eleanor smiled against his shirt. Stubborn man, stubborn woman. Perfect match then. Yeah. Caleb's voice went soft with something that might have been wonder. I reckon we are. The next morning, Eleanor walked to the porch. It took 20 minutes. Every step sent fire through her right leg. 3 times she nearly fell, catching herself on the wall, on a chair on sheer determination. Caleb stood by the door, his hands fisted at his sides, visibly stopping himself from rushing to help. But she made it. She stood on the porch, gripping the railing, looking out at the land that was now her home. The creek glittered in the morning light. The horses moved lazily in the corral. Somewhere Lily was singing while she collected eggs. I did it. Eleanor's voice came out, wondering. I actually did it. Never doubted you for a second. Liar. But she was smiling. You doubted me plenty. Doubted myself, never you. Caleb joined her on the porch, his arms circling her waist. Garrett said you might never walk again. Said to prepare for the worst. Garrett does not know me. No, but I am starting to. Caleb pressed a kiss to her temple. You are the most stubborn, infuriating, magnificent woman I have ever met. And I am glad you are mine. I am not yours. Eleanor turned in his arms facing him. I am my own. I choose to be with you. That is different. Is it? Yes. Her hand came up to rest on his chest. Belonging to someone means they can discard you when you are no longer useful. Choosing someone means you stay because you want to, not because you have to. Caleb's expression shifted, understanding dawning. That is what Ashford wanted. For you to belong to him. That is what everyone wanted. My parents, the families I worked for. Everyone who saw me as useful instead of valuable. Eleanor's voice hardened. I spent my whole life being kept like a good tool, well-maintained, properly stored, brought out when needed and put away when not. And now I am choosing my own shelf. Eleanor's smile turned fierce. And I am choosing to stay there because I want to, not because someone put me there. Caleb laughed, the sound warm and genuine. You know what I think I understand. Do you, He kissed her properly, this time long and slow. You are not my wife because you belong to me. You are my wife because you picked me. Out of everyone you could have chosen, you picked an ornery Wyoming rancher with a dead wife and a grieving daughter, and a ranch that barely breaks even most years. I picked a man who searched beyond hope, who sat with me through fever, who stood between me and a judge who wanted to own me. Eleanor's hands fisted in his shirt. I picked the only person who has ever looked at me like I was worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. I am starting to believe that. Lily came running around the corner of the cabin egg basket swinging. Mama, you are on the porch. You walked all the way to the porch. I did. That is amazing. Lily bounded up the steps, careful not to jostle Eleanor. Can you walk to the creek tomorrow? I want to show you where the best frogs are. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. How soon? Eleanor looked at Caleb, saw her own determination reflected in his eyes. As soon as I can. The summer deepened around them. Eleanor's walking improved day by day. First to the porch, then to the well, then on a triumphant afternoon in late August, all the way to the creek with Lily dancing ahead. This is my favorite spot. Lily pointed to a bend where the water pooled deep and slow. Mama used to bring me here. My first mom, I mean. She paused, an uncertainty flickering across her young face. Is it okay to talk about her? Eleanor lowered herself carefully onto a flat rock. Of course it is. Papa does not like to. He gets sad. That is because he loved her very much. Talking about people we love and lose can be painful. But you are not sad when I talk about her. No, Eleanor patted the rock beside her. Tell me about her. What was she like? Lily sat, her small legs dangling over the water. She was soft, and she smelled like bread because she was always baking. She sang songs while she worked. Papa says I have her eyes. They are beautiful eyes. She used to brush my hair every night, told me stories about princesses and dragons and brave knights. Lily's voice went small. I miss that. Would you like me to brush your hair? Lily looked up, hope warring with uncertainty. You would not mind. I would love to. Eleanor reached over to smooth the strand of hair from Lily's face. I cannot replace your first mama, Lily. I would not try. But I can love you in my own way if you will let me. I would like that. Lily leaned against Eleanor's side. Can I tell you a secret? Of course. Sometimes I feel bad for being happy. The words came out in a rush. Because Mama is dead and William is dead, and I should be sad forever. But I am not sad all the time anymore. I am happy you are here. And then I feel guilty for being happy. Eleanor's heart clenched. Oh, sweetheart, your mama would not want you to be sad forever. How do you know? Because she loved you, and people who love us want us to be happy. Eleanor pulled Lily closer. Being happy does not mean you have forgotten her. It means you are living the life she would want for you. Papa says the same thing. Then he is right. He is right a lot. Lily grinned. Do not tell him I said that. Your secret is safe with me. They sat together watching the water, listening to the frogs begin their evening chorus. When Caleb found them an hour later, they were still there. Lily's head in Eleanor's lap, both of them peaceful in a way that made his throat tighten. There you are. Here we are. Eleanor smiled up at him. Lily was telling me about Hannah. Caleb's expression flickered. Pain, then something softer. Yeah, she sounds wonderful. She was. Caleb sat beside them, his hand finding Eleanor's. Different from you. Gentle where you are fierce, but wonderful in her own way. I am glad you had her. Glad even though losing her hurt. So am I. Caleb looked out at the water. Took me a long time to realize that. For a while I wished I had never met her. Thought that would have hurt less than losing her. Would it have? No. Caleb's grip tightened on her hand. The loving was worth the losing. I know that now. How do you know? Because I am doing it again. Caleb's eyes met hers, loving someone even though it means I could lose them, and this time I am choosing it with my eyes open. Eleanor lifted his hand to her lips. Then we are both brave fools. Best kind of fool to be. Garrett came by while you were at the creek, Caleb said one evening. Had news. Eleanor tensed. What kind of news? Ashford left Wyoming. Took the eastbound stage 3 days ago. The breath Eleanor had not known she was holding escaped in a rush. He is really gone, Garrett heard from the marshal who escorted him to the territorial line. Ashford's reputation took a hit when those marshals refused to enforce his order. Apparently word got around about what kind of man he really was. Caleb's arm came around her shoulders. He will not bother us again. You are sure as I can be. Men like Ashford, they cannot stand being humiliated. Coming back would mean admitting he lost. His pride will not let him. Eleanor leaned into Caleb's warmth, letting relief wash through her. For the first time since she had boarded that stage in Boston, she felt truly safe. It is over, she whispered. It is really over. Caleb pressed his lips to her hair. You are free, Eleanor. Really free, for maybe the first time in your life. I do not know what to do with free, whatever you want. Caleb's voice was gentle. That is the whole point. Eleanor thought about it, about all the years of obligation, of service, of making herself useful so others would keep her. And now here on this porch with this man and their daughter sleeping inside, she had no obligations except the ones she chose. I want to learn to ride, she said suddenly. Properly, I mean, not just sitting on a gentle horse. Okay. The first attempt came a week later. Eleanor gripped the saddle horn while Caleb steadied her, her right leg protesting every movement. She fell twice, got back up twice. By the third week, she could manage a slow walk around the corral, her face bright with triumph despite the pain. And I want to play that piano, the one Hannah brought. I would like that. And I want. Eleanor stopped, her voice catching. I want to be a good mother to Lily. Not a replacement for Hannah, but someone she can count on. Someone who chooses her every day. You already are. I want to be better. Eleanor turned to face him. I want to be better than I have ever been at everything. Because for the first time, I am doing it for myself. Not to earn my keep. Not to prove I am useful. Just because I want to. Caleb's smile spread slow and warm. Then that is what you will do. You make it sound simple. It is not simple. Caleb kissed her softly. But simple and easy are not the same thing. Loving you is simple. Living with you might be hard work. But I have never been afraid of hard work. Neither have I. Then we will figure it out together. September brought cooler mornings and golden afternoons. Eleanor stood at the piano for the first time on a Tuesday, her fingers hovering over keys that had not been touched in 3 years. Dust had settled into the spaces between them, a physical reminder of all the silence this house had held. You do not have to, Caleb said from the doorway. If it is too much, it is not too much. Eleanor pressed one key. A single note rang out slightly flat from neglect. It is exactly enough. She sat carefully, her right leg protesting the angle, and began to play. The melody came haltingly, at first muscle memory, fighting against years of disuse. But note followed note, and soon the song emerged whole. A hymn her mother had taught her before fever took both parents in the same cruel week. Lily crept into the room, drawn by the sound. She stood transfixed, watching Eleanor's hands move across the keys. That is beautiful, Lily whispered when the final note faded. I did not know pianos could sound like that. Your first mama played too, Caleb said, his voice rough. Different songs, but just as beautiful. Can you teach me, Lily asked Eleanor, to play like that if you want to learn? I want to. Lily climbed onto the bench beside Eleanor. Show me where to put my hands. Eleanor guided small fingers to the keys, showing Lily the position for a simple scale. The child's face screwed up with concentration as she pressed each note in turn. That is it, Eleanor encouraged. Again, slower this time. Caleb watched from the doorway as his daughter learned his first scale from his second wife on a piano his first wife had brought from St. Louis. 3 women, 3 lives, woven together in ways none of them could have predicted. Thank you, he said quietly. Eleanor looked up. For what? For being here, for teaching her, for, Caleb's voice caught, for making this house feel like a home again. It is my home too now. Eleanor's hand found Lily's, stilling the clumsy scale. Our home. All of us together. Yeah. Caleb's smile spread slow and warm. All of us together. I got a letter today, Caleb said one night after Lily was asleep, from Crawford, the town council. They want to build a proper schoolhouse. They are asking if you would consider teaching. Eleanor looked up from her mending. Me, you taught in Boston for 15 years. You are the most educated woman in the territory. Caleb leaned forward. They are offering a salary, not much but something, and they would schedule around your duties here. I do not. Eleanor stopped, her mind racing. I came here to be a wife, a mother, not to. You came here to choose your own life. Caleb's voice was gentle. If teaching is something you want, we will make it work. If it is not, you say no, and that is the end of it. What do you want? I want you to be happy, whatever that looks like. Eleanor sat down, her mending, considering. Teaching had been her prison in Boston, a duty performed to earn her keep, not a calling pursued for love. But here it could be different. Here she would be choosing it freely. I want to think about it. Take all the time you need. She thought about it for 3 days. Watched Lily devour every lesson she offered. Remembered the children in Boston who had actually wanted to learn, whose faces had lit up when understanding dawned. Imagined a classroom full of ranch children who had never had a proper teacher. Yes, she told Caleb on the 4th morning. Tell them yes, you are sure I am sure. Eleanor smiled. It is time I started building something of my own, not because I have to, but because I want to. The schoolhouse opened in February. 12 students ranging from 6 to 14 crammed into the small building, their faces bright with curiosity and mischief. Eleanor stood at the front, her crutch leaning against the wall. She still needed it for long days, and introduced herself as Mrs. Mercer. I know most of you have never had a proper teacher, she began. Some of you might think school is boring. You might be right. It can be if all you do is memorize facts and recite them back. She paused. But that is not what we are going to do here. What are we going to do? A boy in the back asked, challenge in his voice. We're going to learn how to think, how to question, how to understand the world around us. Eleanor moved to the chalkboard, her limp barely noticeable now. And we are going to start by talking about why. Why what? Why anything? Why does the sun rise? Why do plants grow? Why do people build towns in the middle of nowhere? Eleanor turned to face them. Anyone who can answer a why question gets extra time at lunch. Hands shot up. Eleanor smiled. This, she thought, was what she was meant for. Not the empty performance of competence she had mastered in Boston, but real teaching, the kind that sparked minds and changed lives. Spring came gently that year. Eleanor stood on the porch watching Lily chase Rusty through grass that had turned impossibly green overnight. 1 year. 1 year since she had boarded that stage in Boston, since the crash had broken her body and nearly taken her life. Penny, for your thoughts, Caleb said, joining her. I was thinking about the canyon, about crawling through that heat, certain I was going to die. Eleanor's hand found his, thinking about how grateful I am that I did not. I am grateful too. I used to wonder why I survived when the others did not. The driver, the other passengers, they had families too. Dreams, plans. Eleanor's voice went quiet. Why me? Maybe there is not a why. Caleb pulled her close. Maybe you survived because you refused to quit, because you are too stubborn to die in a ditch. That is not very philosophical. Never claimed to be a philosopher. Caleb kissed her temple. But I know this. You are here now, with me, with Lily, living a life you chose instead of one that was handed to you. Maybe that is reason enough. Lily came running up, breathless and grass-stained. Mama, Papa, the Crawfords are coming up the road. Crawford had avoided them for months after Ashford's departure, ashamed of his earlier cowardice. But lately he had been making overtures. Repairs offered for free, extra supplies left at the general store with their name on them. Guess he is finally ready to apologize face to face, Caleb muttered. Be nice, I'm always nice. Liar. The Crawford's wagon rolled up the valley road and stopped at the house. Crawford climbed down slowly, hat in hand, his wife beside him, with a covered basket. "Caleb." "Mrs. Mercer." Crawford's voice was gruff. "We came too, that is, I wanted to. What James is trying to say." Mrs. Crawford interrupted. "Is that we are sorry, both of us, for not standing with you when it mattered. You were there," Eleanor said to Mrs. Crawford, "for the wedding, and James was not. That is what he is sorry for." Mrs. Crawford elbowed her husband. "Are you not James? I was scared." The admission cost Crawford visible effort. Ashford had money, influence. "I did not know what he might do to my business, so I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up." Crawford straightened. "I cannot undo what I did, but I can do better going forward, if you will let me." Caleb looked at Eleanor. She gave a tiny nod. "Appreciate you saying so, Crawford." Caleb extended his hand. "Let us leave it in the past." Crawford's grip was firm with relief. "Thank you." Mrs. Crawford thrust the basket at Eleanor. "Apple pie. Still the best recipe in the territory." Eleanor smiled. "Still the best." They stayed for coffee, the conversation slowly warming as old awkwardness faded. Lily showed off her reading progress. Caleb and Crawford talked about cattle prices. The women discussed the upcoming church social. Normal life, ordinary connections, the fabric of community weaving itself back together. After the Crawfords left, Eleanor sat on the porch steps watching the sunset. Lily was inside practicing scales, the notes drifting through the open window. Caleb sat beside her. "Good day." "Good day," Eleanor agreed. "Good year." "Yeah," Caleb. "Yeah, if you could go back, if you could do it all over again. Would you still post that advertisement? Still choose a mail-order bride?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Yes, even knowing what would happen. The crash, the crawling, all of it led to you, so yes. Caleb's arm came around her. "I would choose you again in a heartbeat. 100 times, 1,000. Even though I am stubborn and difficult, and I will probably never walk without a limp, and I will never be thin, especially because of those things." Caleb turned her face toward his. "Eleanor, you want to know what I see when I look at you? What I see: a woman who crawled through hell to keep a promise, who faced down a man who wanted to own her and walked away free, who learned to love a little girl who needed her, and a broken man who did not know he needed anyone." Caleb's voice roughened. "I see the bravest, most stubborn, most magnificent person I have ever known. And I thank God every day that you chose this life, chose me." Eleanor's eyes filled. "I thank God, too, for sending you to find me, for giving me something worth surviving for. We found each other." Caleb kissed her softly. "That is what matters." Inside, Lily's scales had transformed into a halting melody. The hymn Eleanor had taught her played with more enthusiasm than skill. "She is getting better," Caleb observed. "She is persistent," Eleanor smiled. "Like her father and her mother." The word hung between them. Precious and earned. Mother, not stepmother, not Papa's new wife. "Mother, I never thought I would have this," Eleanor whispered. "A family, a home, someone who loves me, not for what I can do, but for who I am. Now you have all of it." Caleb pulled her close. "And you earned every bit. We earned it together." "Together." Caleb nodded slowly. "I like that word. So do I." They sat watching the last light fade, listening to their daughter play, breathing in the peace they had built from wreckage and will. 1 year ago, Eleanor Whitmore had crawled through a desert with broken legs, driven by nothing but a promise and a refusal to quit. Now she was Eleanor Mercer, wife, mother, teacher, a woman who had chosen her own life instead of accepting the one handed to her. A woman who had learned that love was not something you earned through usefulness, but something freely given and freely received. The promise that never arrived on schedule had become something better than punctuality could ever offer. It had become a family forged in fire, a love proven by choice, a life built not on obligation but on the daily decision to stay, to fight, to choose each other again and again. "Mama, Papa." Lily appeared in the doorway. "Are you going to sit out there all night?" "Maybe," Caleb said. "Got a problem with that?" "Yes, I am hungry and I cannot reach the bread." Eleanor laughed, a real laugh, full and free. Coming, sweetheart. They went inside together, closing the door on the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. The ranch would demand attention. The school would need preparation. Life would continue its relentless forward march. But tonight they had this: a warm house, a waiting daughter, a love that had survived desert and fever enemies and doubt. Tonight they had everything that mattered. And Eleanor Mercer, the woman who crawled through hell to keep a promise, knew with absolute certainty that she was finally, completely, irrevocably home.